ripping a Band-Aid off. Hey, everybody, welcome to No Bull Logistics. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Jeff Dangelo, and he's my good friend for, over 10 years now.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somewhere around there. I mean, it's been it's been about 10 years. It's been about 10. How you doing, brother? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be on. It's good that you're bringing it back, right? The No Bull.
Yeah, it is. I did it for a little bit, and then I stopped, and then I came. What inspired me really was Casey Larkin. I responded to somebody's post, and he just responded, "Love me some Vincent from the Top Ropes," because I just like to call it like it is, right? It's just like, no BS. So I mean, that's kind of what this is about. Let's just get real with things, man.
No, it's right? When fame and fortune hits you, right? When you have these amazing podcasts and do great.
Yeah. I wish I had fame and fortune. I have infamy and debt is what I have.
I just got to ask, what's the story behind the shark?
It isn't. There's no story. My daughters found it like dirt cheap at a TJ Maxx or something and decided to buy it for me.
Oh,
so
it's a great addition to all the other great things you have back there.
Well, I used to have a whole bunch of different stuff, and I decided, I'm going to put my guitars up because that's what I really love is the music and guitars. So I put those up. And
I wish I had a talent like you. Yes.
Oh, me too. I wish I had a talent like I thought I did.
I was always envious. I was always envious in like college and beyond college. Like I would see these people play guitar and sing, and I'm like, wow, like I wish I could do something.
Well, I tell you what, I picked it up to relate to my daughter because she was fantastic. My oldest daughter, and I could play ball with my boy and stuff like that. But I mean, she just was nerded out on music, and I had no talent whatsoever. So I picked it up to learn that, to relate with her, and I just fell in love with it. Now I can't put it down. I can't tell you how awesome. It's a great. To dig into music theory on any instrument, just digging into music theory and learning how to play it and stuff like that is just such a great therapeutic, almost Zen concentration moment that it kills your all the noise from your stress and anxiety of what you're doing in your business, right? Because it's there whether you manage it correctly or not. It's still always there, but it just peels that stuff away and really gives you that sharp image. And so many times after jamming for a while or studying music theory, a problem becomes clear to me how to get that answer, right? To get your mind back, because you start to confuse yourself with what if and what if and what if, and you can't get to the answer sometimes, right?
Well,
you're just muddying everything.
Yeah, it's all you think about. You don't sleep, you don't eat, it's all you think about is what are the logical next steps, and sometimes the answer is more artistic and less like logical.
100. You got to tap into both sides of your brain, right? And that's music does that because there's a lot of math in it. There's a lot of engineering in it, and there's a lot of creativity. It just brings everything together. I love it. It's therapeutic, dude. And if I'm sitting around, there's
this stuff the whole time versus any business stuff. I think this would
be a great.
We
might do that the whole time. I don't know. If this was live, we could take a poll, or we could just do whatever the hell we want, brother. Because you know what, we got the cameras and the mics.
Oh, that's true.
So we'll just do whatever the hell we want to do, brother. There are tunes out there, though. John Brewer, who's the CKU Restaurants, he's the head of logistics for them in Nashville. He writes parody lyrics, and I do the music and stuff behind him.
Oh, that's awesome.
We got like 27 songs out there.
I'll be in Nashville in about a little over a week. Love that town.
Are you going to the Transportation Club golf out here?
My brother lives in Franklin, which is a suburb, and I see my brothers. My one brother lives in Boston area. My other brother lives in Nashville area. My dad lives in North Carolina, and we probably get together once every couple of years. The last time we were together was the Cincinnati Bengals lost the Super Bowl, and everyone had come to my house, and I think it was like one of the only times I've ever seen my dad cry.
Really.
Yeah, it was a monumental because he's he was with the boys and he thought they were going to win, and it's, oh my gosh, we're going to
Oh,
do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And yeah, so that's the last time we've all been together, and I probably see each of them maybe once a year.
yeah.
But yeah, we've kind of stayed apart.
Yeah, growing up kind of sucks sometimes, right? We were just talking about glasses a minute ago. Put your old man glasses on. Come on.
Oh man.
Don't try and be
Oh
cool, Jeff. You're always trying to be the cool guy. You're not all that cool, bro. Come on. There it is.
yeah,
There we
yeah,
go. Now we're doing better, brother. At least they're not those ones that like flip down, right? You see those?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't flip down, but they definitely have, they connect. They have like a magnet. So
Yeah, no, those are pretty cool. Those are pretty cool.
those are
Yeah,
not
I
cool.
no, they're not. I'm just trying to make you feel better. They're kind of dorky, but
Over the years though, I've kind of become a little nerdy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've
you
gotten
got to
in. They,
embrace it, right, dude? You start
I,
hitting that age where you're just like, okay, I'm nerdy. You look in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm just really not that cool anymore. But I'm kind of cool in a dorky way now. So
but
why
I
not?
remember like growing up, and played a lot of sports, and like the people that were into to math, or people that were into computers, and people, and I'm just like, what's all that for? And as I started getting into it over the years, and I think honestly, the catalyst was starting Turbo. Was like, um, I learned so much about things that I had no idea about, and I just became enthralled with it. I loved it, and so like even the company I'm building now, like everything is about data. Everything's about like how do we automate everything, like, and it's just I've geeked out on this stuff, and people are like, wow, like, have you always been this way? I'm like, actually, no, I was the opposite.
But I was too. I was exactly that way as well. I was just sports and that type of stuff. But you're right. As I've grown older and all the experiences that I've had, um, it has become more and more. Well, I mean, recently, over the last 10, 15 years, data driven, right? More and more data driven. But really,
Oh,
the training started, dude. When I started at Roadway Express in the late '80s, we literally had a spreadsheet printed out that it was probably 20 inches long and so on, like this. It just had probably 30 different columns, and it had all the days for the month, and you had it for every year. And when I walked in, I my first terminal manager job. I took over 5 terminals in central Pennsylvania, and each one of them had this for the entire history of that terminal, because we didn't have like we had an AS400 that we could bill shipments on and stuff like that, but there wasn't, we didn't have Excel or anything like that. That shit
right.
didn't exist. It wasn't around. But every night and every morning you were going through and putting those numbers in and comparing them to last year, et cetera. And they had so much in there that you could predict exactly how many hours of dock work you were going to have that day, based on all the history and everything,
Yeah.
where they had all of that figured out. And that's
Wow.
where I started thinking, man, this can all be run on data. They were forcing that down, even though it was on paper spreadsheets. Wouldn't even Excel, which we laugh
Yeah.
about people still using Excel. It's on paper spreadsheets that you were doing this stuff and planning out what was going on.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Excel. Like, I talk to so many different companies, whether they're shippers, they're carriers, they're brokers, they're consulting companies, they're vendors, and the amount of people that are still doing things manually, and the amount of people that are still doing stuff that you look in other industries and you're like, you could just do this, and it's just because of how companies are built, over time, that there might not be an investment in technology in certain places. They just say, I'll hire a person and use Excel. It's still going on, even though like your
Oh yeah,
your commentary about data is awesome. Like not many people were thinking about it that way back then. And I'm aging you and I, but
we are. I mean, I mean, back in the day is like a common phrase now for me, and I know it's dorky and whatever, but how else do I explain it? Because to me, 1987 was like 20 years ago. To me.
oh, I was gonna say, I was like, are you being real? Like it was a lot longer than that. I
I
was
know it was, but I
It's
mean,
funny.
to me, it just feels like it was like yeah, no, a couple, that's maybe 20 years ago, but no, It was not.
We just came from our monthly all hands meeting with the team. And someone had asked me, like, when did I get in the business? When did I get in logistics? And I had this realization. There are people on my team that have been alive for like weren't alive when I
Yeah.
was working in
Oh, for
logistics.
sure. Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm that guy.
You're
I'm
that guy. Yeah, no,
I'm the
100%.
worst
When
guy.
you're that guy. When I was in when we were in when I was at Freightwaves, right? We had LTL experts on there, right? That were younger than the number of years since I left LTL.
Oh my gosh, that's
And I
hilarious.
spent 12 years in LTL.
That's hilarious. That's great.
I'm like, you're only 20 years old. I left LTL in 98.
Oh my God.
Holy shit. Yeah, crazy. Crazy stuff. But I mean, hey, it's okay. You embrace it, dude. You embrace it.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
do.
You become
Yeah,
that
so
person.
I'll be in Nashville next week. I think we're not going to I think I'm going to go to a bunch of my nephew's baseball games. Like we're not going to
Oh,
go
cool.
downtown to the music area, which is
Not going to
just
do
so
that.
much fun.
It is.
If your listeners haven't been to Nashville, like it's so much fun if they're into music. I mean, it's just there's so much music there.
Oh, gosh. It's
And you know
fantastic.
the crazy thing is you go by these bars and these people are singing and playing music and you're like, why don't you have a record that everyone knows about?
Right. Because they're fantastically good.
Because they're amazing, and you and the creativity, and then you have you'll be going by Tootsie's if that's still around. You'll be going by Tootsie's or the Stage, which is probably one of my favorite bars down there, just because it was when I was in my 20s, and I haven't been
Mm-hmm.
there since. But sitting there in front of those bands, you're like, well, you're better than this band and that band, and it was just a break that the famous people got, right, and it's
Yeah.
pretty insane industry.
It really is. It really is insane. And it just like, you were talking about golf and as good as you get, you always run into somebody who's so much better, right? It's like,
Yeah,
oh man, I'm a pretty good golfer. Then all of a sudden you play somebody who actually is good. And then you realize, well, and they're not even on TV on Sunday.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's the same with guitar. I'll play with somebody like, man, you're really good. And I go, no, I suck, dude. And because you play with somebody, you're like, holy man. And they're not even famous. These people are
right,
nothing and they're the best. And what a lot of people don't realize in the music industry is those session musicians, the union guys that the bands pick up when they go from or they're just recording musicians, etc. They're actually the really good ones.
yeah,
It ain't the famous ones that are all that great. There's a
mm,
few, but it's the you know what I'm saying. It's the
yeah,
session guys that are just unfreaking real. You know what I mean? How many session guys did the Beatles bring in? I mean,
right,
there's probably so many people out there that have no clue when they're listening to a Beatles tune. They're listening to Billy Preston.
yeah, and
You know what I
they
mean? It ain't Lennon or you know what I
well
mean?
they have seen so many different musicians. It's kind of like they adopt all these nuances of all these
Right,
different artists and just become better and better and better. And I think it's like life, right? We
right,
over time the people that we're near and the engagements that we have and the experiences we have start to tweak and shape us over time, that we're a different person than we were 20, 30 years ago. Like I'm completely different than I was in my 20s. I'm only
right.
44 years old.
Well, if you take that into logistics, because theoretically this is kind of like a logistics podcast, but if you take that
Oh, we're
into it,
supposed to talk about logistics.
we don't have to. Screw it. We're
I
not
think it's
even going to
great.
do that.
No, it's great. Let's do it.
But
Let's do it.
I mean, just a little bit is when I start, there's when I start out, and I was, logistics has been going on since the Earth, right? I mean,
Right.
it just has. It is what it is, and it's everywhere. But the the knowledge and the crossing between them because of the proliferation of cloud computing, et cetera, and information age is so easily shared. The intelligence that logistics isn't just a truck going down the road. is kind of understood, and the interaction between all of them is becoming much more evident, and therefore our intelligence is growing. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you and I, as we grow, we understand things, and our perspective on certain things become more educated. Right there, it's more well rounded. There's a much bigger foundation of information from which to draw to make a decision or formulate an opinion, etc. And I think the industry as a whole is doing that as well, or at least the opportunity to do that from technology advancements is there. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about when I was thinking through, okay, what are we going to talk about other than Cincinnati and our love of data and this type of stuff. But are we taking full enough advantage of that technology? Because a lot of it is just creating a bunch of crap noise where people have figured out how to get into your inbox in a more automated way instead of actually collaborating and creating something new. Or do you see a
Yeah.
change in that, or what's your view on that
Oh
as a
wow.
whole?
I could talk about this for a long time. It's a really great question. There's a lot of pieces to it. So I think um, part of it is I think the information age, we'll call it, or the adoption of new technologies and the digitization age
Yeah.
is at least opening our eyes to the art of the possible. Like it, back in the day, you would have a shipping manager manage the shipment, right, and give a broker or carrier the shipment, and there's basically a one-to-one connection.
Yeah.
Now you see all the different departments that have to understand it's not just one company, it's all the companies that have to work together. um, all the different departments have to understand what's going on with that order or with that shipment. I use those separately, right? They're commingled, but I use those terms
Mm-hmm.
separately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way technology is today, and I'll give you some like like how companies evolve, but um, I think I think technology is giving us the art of the possible, what should be happening. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
it might happen in certain areas, but in every
Yeah.
area is not
Oh,
happening. So
I think you certainly see it happening in certain areas, but it. Anyways, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's still in many ways fragmented. When we built Turbo, the thing we were trying to solve was this, which is you have all these people and companies that have to work together and no common tool set to do it. Right now, you have the advent of like Google Docs and now Microsoft sharing, and now every platform in the world should have a sharing component to it. And I think Turbo is really the only one, and probably still the only one that allows you to do that in that way. But how companies are built, if you think about it, like if I'm a organization that manufactures stuff, I'm going to generalize here across the board, but they start out really small, right? And they're just trying to get orders out the door. They're just trying to get orders out the door to make money to stay profitable.
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain size, it's usually between 10 and 20 million in freight spend, where you're like, I got to do something about this because my customers are reaching out to my customer service people. They don't know where their stuff is. I don't
Yeah.
know how to measure the business. Like, how do I measure it? Like, I don't have a proper technology. I've hacked together an ERP with Excel and QuickBooks. And they haven't really invested. So as they start to evolve, they start to see these things. But changing behavior with one company is really hard. Changing behavior with a network is even harder, and that's where I think the 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 advent of AI in our world can solve so much around human behavior and adoption. So our
Hmm.
biggest problem of at Turvo was, and then I'll get to why
Let
Furo
me
is
ask you.
interesting.
Let me ask you real quick from that. So, is that from a fear of the adoption, or that it enables it to be adopted faster through fear, or just through lack of knowledge or intelligence bandwidth?
Well, it's
When you say the
I would
AI
tell
can,
you it's several things. One
okay,
um, is a core focus of the business to adopt, right?
yeah,
Like if the business is like, yeah, we got to adopt this, and they give the tools to their
yeah,
people are going to revert back to old behaviors. It's just
sure,
what they do.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
just keep
yep.
using Excel. I'm not going to use this new tool.
Stayed with the
It,
familiar. Yep.
it's also a lot of times companies will add several different technologies at the same time, and you're being pushed and pulled in all different directions as a user, and you're like, all right, what should I do? The
Mm.
third is you have people that are like, well, if I do that, what's going to happen to my job, right? The fourth is, especially for logistics, like if I'm in brokerage or if I'm a carrier or whatever, um, they don't want to push that on their customer because they think it'll make it harder for the customer to adopt. And the customer will say, no, you use what I want you to use because I'm the
Mm.
customer.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
actually believe that the customers are like, tell me what I should be doing. I'm not like, I might have been in this job, but this world's evolving faster than I should. And maybe there's things I should be doing that I'm not. And maybe there's underlying problems that I have that I'm not attacking. Take visibility, for example.
Yeah.
If you go to a freight manager and you're like, hey, tell me about your visibility. Like, we know where all the updates are, right? I get my email update from my broker, my carrier. I get all this kind of stuff. And then you ask them how many customer service people they have. And they're like, well, we have 10 customer service people. Why do you have 10 customer service people? Well, because the customers want to know, where their stuff is. And I'm like, okay, then what happens? And then, so there's like this, they don't know that there's a problem until you help them understand what the problem actually is. So that is a problem with adoption because they're like, I'm fine. I don't need anything. But then the data shows something different because a lot of companies still aren't data driven. There's few like you work for, or,
Yeah.
there's companies like Fira that drives most of our decisioning. And, but I think adoption of this stuff is really hard. And so that's why I believe that the more I do this, the more I believe that AI isn't just solving the automation problem, it's solving the adoption problem, right? Because
It
instead of
is, and
saying
there's so
I've got
much
to,
to that. Wow.
yeah, I've got to train 40 people, or I train one to train the AI to do the work, and all of a sudden everything's working beautifully, and all of a sudden the problem that my one user had isn't there anymore, and they don't have to do the manual work, but they also didn't have to adopt anything. So I think it's a really interesting question. Going back to your original question, and um, like there's a huge opportunity for automation across all companies,
Mm.
but but I do think, especially on the shipper side, that shippers should be more open if they're not to saying, you know what, like let me step back. I don't have it figured out, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe there's things that can help my business that they're doing that maybe I should look at and let someone else sort of show you what the art of the possible is.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. Well, how much when there's adoption within inside a inside the company, when you look at these things, you're talking about training one person versus another, et cetera. There's a bit of people who are addicted to task as well, right? I mean, you can get so much more done if you're automating things, but then you don't get that instant gratification of, oh, I made 500 phone calls today. If you change things, because the system's now doing that, right? Or whatever it happens to be. Do you feel a bit of that is just human nature? Because you say people revert back to what they were doing before, right? How do you overcome that with, or maybe you don't have the answer, but I mean that's a
No,
big
no,
hurdle
no.
too, right? Is
It's a great
is
question. I mean, as part of like for us, there's a lot of journey mapping, and
yeah,
there's a lot of saying, okay, if this person isn't going to do that, what are they going to do next as a role, right? What
right,
was their and there are going to be changes to any organization when you do these things.
sure,
It could be, instead of investing in more operations people, that we're going to take that money and put it in sales so that our team has more to work on, right? And it's just
mm,
more
mm,
exception
mm,
management.
mm,
But there is a lot of planning that goes on beyond, hey, let's just adopt this tech. It's like, we did something interesting in the beginning. We started like when I was a late co-founder of Fira, and we started they're like, what's the perfect shipment? They didn't know like how do we design this? And I said, let's just go on a journey map of everyone involved in the shipment and what they do and what they create and what they make and what technology does from start all the way to finish. And we said, okay, where's the biggest impacts? You make business cases, sort of for each one, like what's the big, I mean, you focus on the highest impact things.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, okay, what are those people going to do now? And sometimes the answer is we'll find something else for them to do. Sometimes the answer
Mm.
is we don't, maybe we don't need that role anymore. Right.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Like you see what Microsoft did, right? Microsoft, I'm not saying you lay off a bunch of people, which what I truly believe is, I just think it's going to make everybody be superhuman, right? In terms of what they can do. So I don't want to have a room of 10,000 people doing $1 billion in revenue. What I would rather have is, my core team, 40 people doing $1 billion of revenue.
Sure.
And actually customers getting more out of what we can provide them, and all of our people focused on touching customers or touching carriers and I still believe in relationships more than most people. Like, I still think there's going to be a relationship aspect to this, but all of the manual stuff is just going to be gone. At least, except for exceptions. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously, but it's
No,
going
no,
to.
obviously, but if you take that idea and let's just take it to its extreme conclusion, out years and years and years, whatever. When you know, at least a huge driving force in the brokerage world or the intermediary world was that businesses were not in the business of shipping; they're in the business of creating and marketing a product, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then for somebody discovered, whoever it was, or it naturally evolved, was okay, let's outsource this logistics. There's a way to do this now. I don't have to manage this myself, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hiring capacity instead of having to hire drivers and stuff like that all the time, right? It just
Right.
makes more sense. And then you have this this growth of extreme intellect and professional intelligence within that vertical, which is now the logistics vertical, which is there, which is now very, very good and getting better and better and better, right?
Yeah.
Does the advent eventually and adoption of technology start to bring that in house again?
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? I mean, like I'm not
It,
saying
it
that, oh,
does.
it's the death of the voice broker, which I heard in 2010, which is
Yeah.
has obviously not occurred. But eventually, if you're going to utilize AI, and you've got a lot of nascent technologies that are out there right now that are like, man, you can bid your freight live constantly. If you,
Yeah.
because the data's there. Who is the carrier? Who's the best carrier? Where are they running? What's their best? You have the ELDs. You know what markets are overbooked, which are underbooked by the entire market and by the. If you were to agglomerate all that
Yeah.
disparate data, you put this in the thing. The technology's there, right? To
Yeah.
just have it work. I mean, we talked about
Yeah.
gray fleets before with autonomy, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think so. So number one, like idealistically, yes, that's what happens, right? There's a technology that you just connect to your ERP and it just runs and does the
and it
work.
just runs.
Now,
Yeah,
the problem, there's a lot of problems here. One
sure.
problem is, unfortunately, the venture market kind of said, "Screw you" to the logistics industry. Even like with the advent of, there's some folks raising capital that are doing good, but like
Yeah,
they're not putting $100 million in companies like they did the Convoys of the world, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
there
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
there's going to be scar tissue for several years of
Sure.
that. They'll come back. Like it's always cyclical. They'll come back, whatever. But
Hmm.
investors are not patient in building the 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 amount of engineering that's going to be automated through AI. It's going to have to get to the point where it's so cheap to go build platforms where that becomes possible. So I'm not
Mm.
saying it's not going to happen. It's going to take several years for us to get to that play. I always believe that
Yeah.
technology will create an insourcing concept, which is why for companies to survive in our space in the logistics brokerage world, Business model innovation is going to have to be the next. It's not just AI, but it's like, how do you revolutionize your business model so you're not, you're not making 15%, where it's a per shipment, like, and I see it on the edges. Some guys are trying to do
Sure.
it, which is great, but business model innovation is going to be really important.
Of course. Yep.
Where it's $5 a transaction, and here's everything that it does. And oh, by the way, you have this person that will answer the phone on the other line. It may be real, maybe not, but it's going to be a technology driven thing. And it's going to be the haves and the have nots, those that can supply their technology, you know, to the customer to run, and they're just the exception handling team, is the next big thing
Yeah.
from a freight brokerage perspective. Transactional freight, you're still going to have laggers. Like, you're going to have the produce world that's going to lag. You're still going to have some old industries that are going to lag. Like,
Oh,
you're
sure.
going to have
Yeah.
laggards, but
Christmas tree season still going to be done by faxes.
no, yeah, yeah. I, I, it's funny.
It's funny
This is
because
a,
we used to
is
do
it
that. We said you never know it's Christmas tree season until there's no capacity because there's no shipments coming across. You're not
It's
seeing
funny you
any.
said. Is it funny you said that? And I really like this guy, but I want to tell a story. So I started in logistics in 2002,
Yeah.
and it was a little company in East Walnut Hills, and about 25 people. Um, it was called Total Quality Logistics, right?
Never heard of them.
And there were two founders, Ken Oakes and Ryan Legg. And I remember we had, I think we had, not too long before I joined, like, we got email, like they got email finally, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And anytime you wanted to send a customer anything or carry anything, you'd fax it. Like, that's what we do, right? It was right
Right.
next to the coffee maker, where our head of sales would, make a pot of coffee with like 10 scoops of coffee.
Oh yeah.
And like, it was just, you know,
We
all
used
day,
to
all
make it
night.
with a product called Water Joe. Do you remember Water Joe?
Mm-mm.
Water Joe was caffeinated water.
Oh my gosh.
We used to
That's
make coffee.
hilarious.
We'd make coffee with it.
That's so funny. But I remember hearing, like, one of the reps said to Ken, he's like, "Well, I emailed it," and he's like, and this is now the richest guy in Ohio, by the way, and
Yeah.
he's since evolved and really understands, spends a lot of money and energy on technology. That company was a really cool company, like, when I was there, but some people like it, some people don't, whatever. But what he said to him, like, now that I look back, was like, "Whoa, like, this is crazy." He said, this email thing is going to be a fad. Like, keep faxing, like, fax
Yeah.
it to your
Yeah. Yeah.
customer. And how things have evolved, obviously, since then, and really interesting. But going back to, like, what's going to happen? Yeah, I I think there's obviously going to be laggards, but I think the key is, how do you change your model over time? To, in some ways, you got to meet the customer where you are, but in other ways, you could take the lessons of what technology companies do. They productize their approach and build a different business model, build a different way to go into shippers and say, "You don't have technology, we're going to give this to you, we'll be the exception management, and oh, by the
Yeah.
way, like, you don't have to worry about, like, this, 200, 300, $500 per transaction rip that I'm going to make,
Yeah.
because it's the technology doing the work, and they're not greedy." And I'm not saying,
Yeah.
like, brokers, like, I'm not calling people out, but, like, there is a sense for this power struggle that happens between shippers, brokers, and carriers, that I just wish it went away.
Well,
Like, it's
I
it's
almost
painful.
responded to a LinkedIn post yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before, talking about the lack of foresight and knowledge of the explosion of loads coming out of the Savannah port area, right? And it was there's like, hey, go out there and get your money, man. Go out there and take it. Well, that statement is what's wrong with the industry.
Yes,
That's why it goes
on
this
both sides.
way, and they make a ton, and it goes that way, and they don't make. I'm both 100% on both sides. 100%.
Yeah,
That's what's wrong.
on both
Um,
sides. I'd
yeah,
rather just be transparent, and there's a big push for transparency, right? But I'd rather go to a customer, which we do, is like, "Hey, we'll give you all the transparency in the world. Like, oh, I don't care. Like fixed fee, don't care because I want to add more value than I'm charging for them. And I want them to say it's just a good deal, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't think that way. And I think we need to, but I think there's going to be players that figure out what you just said about doing, like give them the tools and let
Yeah.
me be exception. And, here's a small fee.
Well, there already are players like
Yeah.
that. If you look what like what's his name? Is it Mike Boxed from Bloomberg? Now he's running. Is that what his name? I'm going to look it up while I'm telling you a story. But people like him are they're not. There's more. Remember BASF? We don't make the light
Yeah.
bulb. We make it better. There's more people doing that now.
Yeah.
Not more than doing an actual product, but there's more of those growing up that are just they're the integration piece. They're
Yeah.
tying the ERP to this, to the ELDs. They're this layer inside that goes, okay, wait a minute. If you had, if you had Beagle .ai and you had Qt and you had True Signal and you had Highway all together, and you could then be the, you know,
Rapper.
the, be the wrapper or be that layer in
Yeah.
between. Boof, you're
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
right? You're done.
Yeah.
Um,
Conceptually, for sure.
conceptually, that's what it's very interesting. Let me ask you this about what you were talking about. We're talking about what's wrong with the industry. There's a lot wrong with, and there's a lot wrong with every industry. So we're
Yeah,
not
for sure.
picking on anything. We just know this one better than others. But the grass is not greener. I've tried it. Um, and sometimes people spray paint. I had a guy, a VP of operations, who literally would spray paint his grass. He had two different types of green. He was so OCD, he would spray paint his like
My
yellow.
gosh.
This is a
Did he do
guy
the
who I
scissors? Did he take the scissors and make sure that,
he
because I saw,
he
there
would
was a neighbor of mine
he
that had
would
that.
he actually started using double-sided tapes in his on his office for his plaques and pictures, because I would go in there and when he wasn't looking I would purposely put one askew and it would drive him freaking nuts. I
Oh
would
my
walk by
gosh.
his office and just toss a paper clip in onto the floor and he'd be like, F you, Vincent,
Freak
come
out.
on.
Yeah.
He'd
Freak
freak him
out.
out.
That's
but
awesome.
but we have these, this on both sides. We were talking about pricing and how they gouge each other, right? And they keep this fighting and stuff going on. But then you also have, the theft issues. There's a lot of different issues.
Mm.
Bad players. We just saw the theft ring out in L.A. or wherever it was,
LA. Yeah.
and yeah, 85 million. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it might have been Chris Jamroz or something, but put forth, and I think we agreed somewhat that the ease or the non-barrier to entry into our market is the culprit for all this stuff. It's so easy to come in and get it. I was just telling them, I said, look, I've done it before. In fact, there's a major company right now that has the MC number that I bought for $250 15 years ago, and it was already 10 years old when I bought it, because all I did was go on Safe Assist and start calling people with old numbers. And
Yeah.
I got
With
a
all them
hold
C
of a
numbers.
guy who didn't even know he owned it still. And I said, you do? And he
Yeah.
goes, what do I do? I said, well, I'll give you $250. You write that you sold it to me on this, and I'll send it to the FMCSA, and it's mine. It's
That's,
that
yeah.
easy. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I've been in business 20 years. Um, what is your concept on that? What is your, do you have thoughts on that, on this issue? Because you have great things like Jordan Graft is doing some great things at Highway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
But
like him.
it
And
enables you
Michael's
to do
great.
some, yeah. Well, Caney, yeah, it's fantastic. I worked with him for a number of years.
Talk
Great
about a
guy.
passionate dude. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just
There's
so
no doubt.
passionate, loves what he does, just works his
Absolutely.
butt off. Yeah,
Yeah.
their whole team, they've got a great team. They're a vendor of ours. We really like using them. The fraud, you talk about things that keep me up at night, right?
Yeah.
Fraud is one of those things. And barriers to entry, it's really interesting because our team is global, like at Fura.
Yeah.
Like we have a global team. We have people in Serbia, we have people in Panama, we have people in the Philippines, we have people in Dubai, we have people in Portugal, we have people all over the United States. And we look at the best areas in the world to get the best talent for what they do. Like one of my old COO of Turbo, he's a CEO of another startup named Seth. He's an amazing guy, Seth Marlott, and he built an analytics company. And he said, "Hey, the best analytics and math people in the world are in Greece. Like, you just I think the
Really?
best customer centric people are probably in the U.S. Right? Like at least from what we do, you could argue it's England or somewhere else, but like I really I really believe there are areas in the world that you choose. I think one problem that we have is what makes us great makes us weak. Meaning
Hmm.
we should we should be able to find the best talent in the world, but we've got to figure out to wait where to be careful at allowing just anybody to enter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To your point. So it's like we should come one, come the hungry, come the tired, come the poor, like love it, but we've also got to protect our own, right? As a country across the board. So like
There's got to be a vetting of some sort.
there has to be a vetting. I mean, look at what Landstar did, right? Like Landstar just had this, like one of their agent offices had huge fraud, and they had to cut them, and their revenue went way down, and they posted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one piece of it. I think the one of the challenges is the scammers are technologically savvy.
Oh
So
wait, yeah, no, there's no
so
doubt that's part of it. Yeah.
so Jordan and Michael and them and new players across the board
Mm-hmm.
have to continue to invest to get ahead because those guys are trying to figure it out. I heard of a story the other day where a scammer had stole email addresses or hacked a bunch of email addresses and intercepted a bunch of shipments, had a double, like a broker, a fake brokerage entity, double broker the freight out, had the freight actually bump up to another truck that they hired to go steal it. I mean, the whole thing was very thought out. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're just running your business every day, you're like, no one's going to do that. But
Yeah.
they're really smart, savvy people that are like, hey, I'd rather steal than actually do this, the hard way.
A 100%.
And to your point, like vetting should be like getting a bank account. Like what's your social security, what's your background check, what's like all this stuff, and probably even more because you've got millions of dollars in freight that they have access to. So
And you have to have a front end and back end too, right? Because a lot of that vetting and stuff, all it does is well, not all it does, but it helps you to make better decisions or more well informed
yeah,
decisions and safer decisions. But when the transaction physically happens, when the freight actually changes hands, you're still exposed, right? Because
and I think that's
that
what people are worried about from an automation perspective.
yeah, yeah,
Like even though like I use Chat GPT, like it's my executive assistant, like it's
yeah.
amazing, but they're worried that, hey, if I just let this run, is it going to catch the instinctual things you hear on the phone, right? Like
Right,
he or she didn't
right.
sound right. I don't know if I
There was
believe
a pause.
that.
There was a pause right
There's a
there. Or did
weird
I?
thing,
Yeah.
like, and agentic AI might not be there yet. Maybe it is. Maybe in some cases, probably Google's figured it out. But
Did they sound like they live in Bensonville, Chicago?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And
Exactly.
guess
Yeah.
what? The scammers are going to have AI to do agentic scamming too, right? Like
Let
they're
me
going
tell
to
you a story. Me and a guy were doing this thing. He did this experiment. He does surveys and he uses AI voice to call people and do surveys, right? And we took a guy who sounds like he just fell off the turnip truck. I mean, deep South accent. Hey, y'all, just calling to see, blah, blah, right? And taped him for like an hour and a half, to get his voice and everything down for AI and everything, and then used it.
train it.
20% better hit rate
Oh my gosh,
because nobody would believe that would be AI, right? I mean,
that's
no,
awesome.
who's gonna have this guy go, hey y'all, just call and see if you guys got any loads today.
That's so funny.
But it
That's so
worked
funny.
because it just disarmed them right away. Boom.
Yeah. But
It's
but
crazy.
that's where people aren't like most people look at AI and like, how can I use it to go out? But what's going to be the interesting part, and I've seen some of this like online, even in logistics scenarios, is like AI is just going to work with AI. Like it's
Yeah.
going to talk to each other. Like accounting departments are going to, and I think I saw Jess, who was it? Happy Robot Guys, I think did this or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Those guys are awesome.
yeah. So I thought it was an interesting concept.
It is a very interesting concept. It's crazy. The other part that does it that is inherent in the industry is they play on the desperation, right? Because if
Yeah,
you're if you're working with the same ship or same shippers and you're working with the same carriers all the time, right? There's much less of a chance. It's that sudden influx of freight or sudden lack of capacity on or a drop
yeah,
carrier or something that opens that door, right?
1000%. And I think the load boards should do better vetting as well. Like I think
Yeah,
that's a big problem that we have.
yeah,
Is a lot of the tools that were designed a certain way to worked out, right?
yeah,
But now that people are becoming more sophisticated, um, the new entrants, like it's hard as a software company. Like it's a hard thing to do to build user base and to keep user base and to
mm,
keep people paying. You have investors, you have to be profitable. Like there's a lot of money spent on infrastructure and engineering, which costs more than, someone that, might be in carrier sales to start or something, right?
yeah,
And so they're like, hey, you got a new customer, let's go. And the salespeople have to make their quota for the month. Like it's a hard thing. And then to add that second layer of vetting where you're saying 20% of my potential customer base is gone because they're like, so it kind of works
yeah.
against the business model.
It does.
Um, but I've got
Only
about,
because the technology is not there, and it's not, and it's coming
right,
though.
right.
Yeah,
I've got about five,
It's an inefficient step.
I've got about 5 minutes, by the way.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
know you do. I
cut this
was I
up.
was just gonna say, hey man, we're going good, and you don't have to cut. We're not gonna cut that out. You got to go, brother.
Um,
We're just podcast. What are you doing? So you're going to Nashville this weekend, bro?
Next weekend, I'm going to
Next weekend, what do you
Nashville.
do
Next
Memorial Day,
weekend.
man? It's 3 days, so this is official start of summer in Cincinnati, isn't it? Do the pools all open this weekend and all that kind of crap, and people
Yeah, the
swimming in
pool's
50-degree
open.
water?
Yeah, it probably is. It's 60 degrees a day. It was 55 yesterday.
Yeah,
I
t-shirt
hate
weather
this
now, right?
weather. I miss California. I remember I lived in Cali for like 6 years. I
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah,
I don't know. I think I have my son plays select soccer. I have three kids. My middle son
yeah.
plays select soccer. So we have 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday.
Nice.
Monday, I would like to just do nothing and hang out,
Yeah, yep.
but me, I'll probably work a little bit, and I don't know. I might hit the white ball around. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How
I'm
about you?
hanging. Yeah, just hanging around. Going to go hit some balls this afternoon. The little white ball with my family. My wife is a hell of a golfer. She's good. I taught her when we met.
I
Which
like how
most people
you
like don't.
take you. You're like I taught her, so she's good.
No,
You kind
this is
of.
the thing. I taught her, and she just picked it up, man. She was just.
Oh, really?
I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher at all. Just this is what I do, and I really don't know what I do. I learned just by feeling and doing it. And then
Yeah.
she was getting pretty good, so I was like, okay, let me take. I bought her a lesson. She went to 3 lessons. The guy goes, I don't have anything else to teach her. She just needs to go play.
Wow.
And 6 months pregnant, I beat her by one stroke at Indian Mount on Jekyll Island. But
Oh
she's
my
good.
gosh.
She's a
Jekyll
good
Island's a
player.
great place, by the way. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Jekyll
yeah.
Island.
It's fantastic. We like to go to Amelia Island. Golfing there
Amelia?
is
Yeah.
fantastic. And then if you've never been and you like golf trips, you should check out Reynolds Plantation outside of Atlanta.
Oh yeah. That's amazing.
Fantastic, dude. That place is
Well,
amazing. Well,
Jekyll
we'll go do
Island,
that.
they only have like one course, right?
There's
Jekyll
yeah,
Island.
it's like
I've
well,
been
I think there
there.
might be two or three. I went there. It's Indian Mountain. Yeah,
Yeah, I've been to Indian Mountain.
yeah, 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 yeah,
We stayed on Jekyll Island, and I went out there by myself. Pretty flat course, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was all right. We went there to
yeah,
play. It wasn't any.
yeah,
I wouldn't say, "Hey, you got to go play Indian Mountain." What I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say
yeah,
is, you got to go to Amelia Island and play the ocean course. That's
yeah,
fantastic. And
yeah,
go to Reynolds Plantation. They've got 5 championship golf courses that are all fantastic. But
yeah. You're talking my
yeah,
language.
so I'll do a little bit of that, and then cooking out on Monday. My father in law is a former POW from the
Hmm.
Vietnam War,
Wow.
and so we'll honor him and his buddies and have a smoke a brisket or something like that. And
I mean,
yeah,
I'd love to keep talking because I like that whole like war. Like, I mean, any war is crazy, but
yeah, it's
like we're
insane.
we're so lucky.
Oh God, we are. So yeah, if yeah,
We are so
so
lucky.
we are so lucky. But hey, you got to run, and we're gonna keep talking. I mean, we're still friends, right? I didn't piss you off, did I?
Yeah, yeah, of course. No, we're good.
Fantastic.
We're good.
All right. Well,
Um,
hey everybody, I'm going to cut off the recording because we got to say goodbye, and we're going to say goodbye to you guys first. So hey, thank you for tuning in to Noble. We'll do this again real soon. Jeff, thank you for coming on, my friend. Peace and love.
Thanks, Michael. Good to see you.